asked her, would you take a picture of me so my husband knows I'm really here? I'm not on some wonderful rendezvous or tryst with somebody. Let me, let's turn the lights down a little bit.
Yes.
I don't want to make a mistake and
Do you
break
need
it.
a microphone?
Yeah, let me use the mic a little bit.
You want it lower or all the way up?
The front one's down.
Being videographer.
Thank you.
Gratis.
Is that better? Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. First off, I want to thank you all so much for having me here. I met Patricia at the Asala conference in is it September or October? Well, last semester for us. And I was very excited about the fact that she said, oh, you know, I really would like you to come and talk. And I said, oh, okay. And she sent me some information, and then I didn't hear from her for a long time. And I was like, well, maybe they changed their minds. And then she sent me a thing saying, can you come on this date? And I was like, certainly I can. And then the next thing you know, I'm here. So I'm very excited about that. I'm going to give you basically one of my lectures. It's not going to be boring, I hope. And then we're going to watch my documentary that I created for my dissertation proposal. And unfortunately, since my Mac died, a lot of the documentary stuff that I wanted to add to it was unable to be added. I went to India and did some research, and a lot of the footage, as Cindy will tell you, I have probably 50 tapes of footage, 50 hours of footage that I really have to find some kind of way to incorporate. And I told her I'm just going to do a whole new film. But this is the proposal that I did, that you'll see after I talk, that I did in 2005 is when I did this proposal. So that's when the video comes from. But the talk is about my research, the results, and the history of African Americans and their perceptions. I am not my hair, or am I, is the title of the paper. Just as she arrived at her chariot, an angel appeared. I can tell you use optimum hair care hairdress, the angel said. The moonlight dances in your hair. The woman smiled at the angel, happy she'd taken control of her life, happy she'd taken control of her power, happy to have discovered optimum care hairdress. Since before the biblical Samson and Delilah story, hair has been a fascinating symbolic cultural entity. The Maasai of Kenya believed that their chief would lose their power if he was shaved. Some Native American tribes removed the scalps of their enemies to release their souls and capture their power. And strict Orthodox Jews still maintain hair prohibitions. Hair has represented everything from virility to castration and submission, and this is why anthropologists have consistently focused on it as a valid area of cultural inquiry. This advertisement embodies the importance that hair holds for women of African descent. I found this image in a popular magazine for black women as a master's student researching beauty ideals, and it helped me launch my inquiry into the importance of hair among African women of African descent. As an anthropologist, I found myself asking, is hair one of the things that makes black women different? Moreover, is the ability and process of symbolization evidence of our humanity? Symbolizing isn't a part of what we show as being human. What makes us human, and what makes us different? These are the questions I was trying to answer when I started doing my work. And this is what that professor forced me to be able to answer. Why is it important? And so he made me go out and find those answers. But it took me a long time. Colonialism and post-colonialism have a profound impact on the lives of women, and especially women of color. These systems help create and authorize the cultural disruption of local beauty ideals that have continued with the emergence of a globalized aesthetic identity. So while globalization may have increased the possibility for contesting overt sexism and patterns of domination, it has also brought forth subtle new forms of gender oppression. Following Appadurai's theories about globalization types, I assert that worldwide women are faced with Western aestheticscapes that end up being allowed to dictate our physical work. That is why you see in Africa women who have more perm products than natural hair products nowadays. This presentation covers a theoretical background upon which my research is based, a sample of my data, and my research results. The history of the black body is one of the key elements needed to understand the relevance of hair as a performative identity marker among African and African-descended women in the historical development of the concept of blackness, and the powerful visual imagery produced about the black female body. Historically, the concepts of servitude, sexual depravity, and racial hierarchy were inextricably linked through the Talmudic curse of Ham. The notion of the black body became synonymous with high levels of sexuality, depravity, laziness, and violence that needed to be controlled. This was some of the first overtly negative imagery created about the enslaved black body. And these beliefs helped craft the history of inhumane treatment endured by enslaved peoples in the Americas. And what you have to understand is, prior to slavery, being black was just like being tall, being short, just you were black. But slavery changed the nature of blackness. It made it so that they had to figure out a way to continue, particularly with Christianity. They had to figure out a way to make it something separate and different, how to dehumanize us so that we wouldn't just claim we were Christians and not be slaves anymore. So blackness was the marker that was used to make slavery valid. Slaveholders convinced themselves that the sexual encounters with enslaved women were inevitable because of the naturally lascivious nature of black women. Rampant sexual abuse of slave women forced states to legislate race, and the rule of hypodescent was created to enslave the children born of black female bodies. This rule defined all people with one drop of black blood as members of the black race. Ultimately, the black female body was used as a tool of enslavement. By distorting the image of the black body, racism served as a powerful unifying force upon which the concept of whiteness could be launched. The dominant ideology of whiteness espoused by colonizers of the New World was only able to be created as the parameters of blackness were outlined. In the first American edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, 1798, under the entry Negro, it reads, "Flat nose, thick lips, ugliness, and irregularity of shape characterize their external appearance. The Negro women have their loins greatly depressed and very large buttocks, which give them the shape of a saddle." This is the definition of blackness that they produced in 1798. By defining the black body as naturally ugly, idle, and profane, the white body could be exalted as naturally beautiful, industrious, and sacred. Negative images of the black body became ingrained in the landscape of the dominant ideology because whiteness was defined as the oppositional reality to blackness. Group identity or race was inscribed on the individual bodies of enslaved Africans. Skin color and hair texture became accepted as outward symbols of racial inferiority and internal pathology. Asking what makes us human and what makes us different for black women is a critical question for anthropologists, because for the black female, institutionalized racism and chattel slavery is the prism through which her body has been experienced and interpreted, thereby creating a permanent, fixed impression of her in the minds of both her peers and her oppressors, and unfortunately, in our own minds. This legacy of racism, colonialism, and sexism has traditionally served to define us as a group. Whether characterized as beautiful, exotic, ugly, or merely spectacle, the physical attributes of the black female body have served as the defining characteristics of blackness. Black women are faced with an exploitive paradox where we are forced to choose between being hypervisible and sexual or invisible. History reveals that the black female body became the physical manifestation of all of the negative traits associated with the race. In this circular reasoning, the body became evidence of the traits, and the traits were manifested in the perceived ugliness of the body. Dark hair, dark skin, and kinky hair themselves became representatives of primitiveness and immorality in Western culture. It is this extraction of humanity from the physical form of blackness that makes questions about what makes us human in regards to black women so crucial. That is why when we ask these questions about why is it that people have all of these issues with their hair, these are the reasons why. Because of the fact that it was associated with all of these negative concepts. Europeans were able to visibly palpate the otherness of the black female body with the exhibition of Sahara Bartman's pronounced buttocks. This is the Hottentot Venus. She was put on display for people to see the otherness, the difference, the freakishness of the black female body. And they kept her body, I think they just finally released it from the Louvre in France a few years ago. They had this woman's remains, basically mummified remains still. And this picture here is a picture of that display. They stopped displaying it, thank goodness, but they did not. It took them years to return her body to her country. So she was paraded around as some of the first evidence of our inhumanity and sexual depravity. And she served as the foundation of European ideas about black female sexuality, and her exhibition can be thought of as one of the initial ethnographic studies of the black female body. Legal, anthropological, economic, religious, and social forces worked in unison to craft negative images of the black racial body. Focusing on the body as the locus of race helped to cement ideas about racial inferiority being written into the very text of the black female body. The black female body became the physical manifestation of all of the negative character traits associated with the race. In this circular reasoning, again, the body, the negative, the body, the proof became in the body. Race and the condition of servitude were symbolically inscribed on the physical body of the black female. Moreover, the appropriation of the black female image was coupled with the appropriation of her physical body during and post-enslavement. The black female body was conceptualized as animal-like and devoid of physical pain, so our bodies were further victimized by medical experimentation. The science of gynecology owes much of its development to the countless black female bodies that endured experimental vaginal and uterine surgeries without the aid of anesthesia. This overt physical abuse of the black female body made it easy to expand into media abuse. In the 20th century, the development of mass media helped further objectify and other the black female body. Utilizing the long history of colonization, enslavement, and segregation, the media was able to distill the dominant ideology about the black female body into three easily performable caricatures. These characters have become known as mammies, mulattas, and Jezebels. I'm probably a Jezebel. Mammies are obese, asexual beings who live to be caregivers. Mulattas are the result of wanton miscegenation. Is beautiful, but she is tragically flawed because of her black blood. See Imitation of Life. Finally, the Jezebel is the embodiment of sexual promiscuity and criminal mischief. So these are the three characters that we get to play in every movie. If you look at it carefully, this is who we have been portrayed as clearly in everything. In subtle and occasionally even obvious ways, these stereotypes are still reproduced by 21st century media, entertainment, and mindsets. A poignant example of this reality can be observed through a careful examination of the 2002 Oscar-winning movie, Monsters Ball. In Monsters Ball, Halle Berry gives a lackluster performance. Did I say lackluster? Yes, I did. As Letitia Musgrove, an African-American woman who loses her husband on death row and her son in a car accident. Then she chooses to ease her pain by forgetting about memorializing her dead son and cajoling her white co-star, Billy Bob Thornton, into a sexual act by saying, "I want you to make me feel so good." Berry's nudity and aggression and her admittedly animalistic sex scene is purported to be a key factor in her Oscar nomination. Berry becomes the embodiment of the mulatta Jezebel, and her body serves as a discursive space wherein white men can find emotional and spiritual transformation. Berry's performance of the mulatta Jezebel identity is in accord with the dominant cultural imagination about the overt sexuality of black females. Both her physical body and her character make her a performative figure in this racial discourse by reifying negative images about the black female body that are rooted in colonialism, enslavement, and segregation. I would argue that the Academy essentially rewarded Berry for performing what they have imagined to be the authentic black female behavior. It is crucial that we understand what this authentic black female behavior is, because dehumanizing black women continues to be an active pastime. Careful review of this cartoon from the Big Book of Racist Cartoons on Tom Metzger's website that's actually no longer available, because I was trying to look at it again on the website and they have taken it down. You have to actually order the Big Book of Racist Cartoons and pay them for it now. Which obviously I'm not supporting war. It's the War on Aryan Resistance site. I'm not supporting them, so I can't buy it. I'll just have to keep up with this one. And I have permission to use this symbol because I actually mailed off and asked them for permission to use this in my dissertation, and they responded. And we'll talk about who didn't respond after that. This website continues to be depicted as inhuman and slovenly. And a critical part of this depiction lies in the type of hairstyle of the woman in the cartoon displays. The text even comments about the price of the hairstyle being worn by the woman. This type of imagery is expected to be found on a website for Aryan resistance, right? I expect that from the War website. However, reviewing blacktown.net, a dynamic Afrocentric website that professes to help black men heal themselves, has a shockingly similar negative message about black women. Investigating the webpage carefully, I eventually found that one of the webmaster's primary goals is to expose the witchcraft of black feminism. Again, I found that black women's hair plays a prominent role in negatively defining her overall identity. These types of findings highlight the importance hair plays in defining the black female body. And I focus on hair because it's central to our construction of our racial identity. This website is run by Afrocentric, oriented African-American male, supposedly. He would not give me permission to use these images. He cussed me out when I kept emailing him. He sent me like hate email afterwards. And so I had to stop because he was like, would you know, he went insane. But I think if I had been named John, he might have responded and let me use the images, because his whole bent is something, and you can look it up. The website is blacktown.net, and now he doesn't have this image up. He has a whole new set of them. And interestingly enough, they're all very anti-woman in general. And that one was just the one that focused on hair. In attempting to reappropriate our images, black women face an exploitative paradox where we're forced to choose. It should be clear now why the construction of the black female body is the central issue when attempting to understand the construction of our gendered identities. For women of African descent, the geography of the body serves as a powerful and visible symbol of racist ideology. Only by dissecting the symbolic landscape can we hope to regain the control of our body. However, repossessing the black female body is not a simple task because, in part, this image is ingrained in our individual psyches. It speaks to and through us as we police other black women's presentation of self. The recognition of this internal level of control prompted me to focus on hair as a key element in the construction of our female identity. Public, political, and extremely personal for women of African descent, it only makes sense that hair and hairstyles would eventually be interpreted as a prime domain for reproducing and transforming social meaning. Hair is a multi-level, multivocal symbol that is imbued with a plethora of ideas about sexuality, socioeconomic status, political beliefs, and even ethnic identity. Despite being well-kept secrets among African-descendant people, concepts of good and bad hair exist in these communities. Naturally, the question becomes, as Cindy said, what is good hair? What is bad hair? Is having bad hair a form of resistance while good hair is compliant? And who decides? This symbolism that is associated with nappy or bad hair goes beyond a mere indication of hair type or texture. It implies social upbringing, genetic quality, and in the African American community, the word nappy itself, which is often used to characterize bad hair, is almost as offensive as a racial slur. And if you look at this book in the center here, Nappy Hair, there was a major controversy where a woman was actually fired from her job for showing these children this book at the school called Nappy Hair. And so she showed the book. She was a white woman. She read the book to the kids at the school. She got fired over the book being called Nappy Hair, basically. Because the parents didn't know the book is about enjoying and celebrating your beautiful black hair. Not about anything else. They just know their kid came home and said, Mommy, we read a book about nappy hair in school today. And of course the protest came. She was terminated. Wow. Discussing the black body requires that we focus on its materiality. We're drawn to the imagery of skin, nails, hair, and body forms. However, this is never the entire enunciation of the black body. During slavery, identifiable body features such as hair texture and skin color were graded by a hierarchy that increased in value as it approached white phenotypes. This is still the same hierarchy that we're working with now. This practice was and continues to be reinvented among African descendant people. So my research questions were, are there shared symbolic meanings? I had to try to figure out, what's going on? Is this something that I just see at my house and my friends think of? Or is this something that's actually going on all over the world in all these different cultures? To answer my research questions, I conducted 3 levels of inquiry. First, I attempted to describe and analyze the symbolic acts regarding black hair. And then I investigated and evaluated the importance of these acts. And finally, I created a conceptual framework to illustrate how these acts function among women of African descent. I used symbolic anthropology, black feminism, and the African diaspora as my framework. My field sites were very interesting. I used my own body as a field site. I interviewed women in beauty shops. I did a virtual survey, and I did participant observation. We did free listing. We did all of these different methods to get this information about black women. My methods multiplied as my project progressed, and I went from participant observation to focus group to online surveys and experiments in the collection of material, culture, and hair stories. So what's interesting is these hair stories is what you'll see in the video. But this is my experiment. Of the 12 photographs, women overwhelmingly selected photos with long, naturally colored hair as the most desirable and professional. Hairstyles with color had 3 degrees of variation from the norm, and it appears that the more closely the hairstyle is aligned with being natural, the more positive it's perceived. Also, the longer the hair, the more positive it is perceived. Natural hairstyles had the least positive responses, but the photos with natural hair were also seen as well educated. So basically what you see here is the same woman with 12 different hairstyles, right? And what you had to do in the experiment was you saw her picture and you answered questions about her each time. A lot of people didn't even recognize this was the same woman. They caught it later. They were like, oh, wait a second, that is the same woman. And you asked me the same questions about the same woman. So what I found was they felt that the long straight hair was the most attractive, professional, and conservative woman. One who goes to the gym often, and she's middle class. And she was the one who they felt like was extremely educated. And despite what women said about hair not mattering, because when I interviewed them, they said, oh no, hair doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can have any kind of hair. Well, when they went and did the survey, what you found was they overwhelmingly elected this woman as the most positive and professional woman that they saw among all of women. This one, of course, was the most ghetto. She was an entertainment worker. You know what entertainment work she does, right? The kind with the pole? Yeah. She's poor. Her highest level of education is probably high school. And her leisure time is spent at the dance club and having her nails done. This person is the most ethnic person. She's the least Christian, however. She's a graduate student, probably. But she spends her free time reading, and she's the only black nationalist of all the group. And she's working class and poor. So apparently dreadlocks make you poor.
Aww.
And I don't understand why she's the least Christian and why she's seen as educated, but she's not seen as the one who necessarily is making the most money. These results reveal the social, cultural, and economic hierarchy associated with hair texture and choice among women of African descent. This woman is a poor food service worker, unemployed, apathetic. Again, she spends her leisure time going to the club. This one with the curly, fluffy hair that I like the best, because it looks like me, is the richest, best educated person in the group. And she's the second most professional one. She has a postgraduate degree, and her leisure time is spent exercising and reading, all based on her hair. Wow. So from this, I created a conceptual framework where I realized that these hair rituals moved into our hair symbols and our hair beliefs. Why is it important? Why is this anthropology? Why is this visual anthropology? This conceptual framework for the black hair domain is based on the research presented in my dissertation. And this study revealed that the rituals women engage in concerning their hair help outline the symbolic meaning attributed to hair texture and hairstyles in this culture. Finally, the belief system crafted from these rituals helps symbolize and reinforce the values and ritual symbols we use, turning particular combinations of hair texture and styles into social, cultural, and economic capital. That is why you see people who have short hair being asked, are they lesbians? People who have natural hair being, the assumption is, oh, you must be politically motivated. You're for the cause because you have dreadlocks. And if you have straight hair, you must not be for the cause because that is part of what the belief system has told us. So all of these beliefs actually mean something and can be quantified, and that's what I've done. In this conceptual framework, items that are closer to the center circles are associated with having more social capital, while items on the periphery of the circles are granted less social capital. So having long hair gives you more social capital, and having shorter hair gives you less social capital. As the areas commingle, the level of social, economic, and cultural capital move in and out. Because obviously, you could have short hair and everybody knows that you're rich because you're Michael Jackson's wife or ex-girlfriend or Basketball Wives, whatever the case may be. You all know that show, right? The Basketball Wives. I've never understood how being somebody's wife could be a job, but apparently it is. Just as anthropologists Berger and Leach discussed in their work, my work affirms the notion that hair is a powerful symbol used to construct identity within cultural domains. Like the slaves, Orlando Patterson talks about, that use their hair to declare their individuality and worth, modern-day black women may be engaging in the same type of resistant behavior. And let me say that again, the same type of resistant behavior, because a lot of times people assume, oh, when you do research on hair, you must not like, oh, but you have straight hair, so what? They get very confused about what's going on because the assumption is that I must be anti-straight hair. And as Cindy said, I'm not necessarily anti-straight hair, obviously. I'm simply not knowing what the hair means. I don't want you to buy a product if you don't know what it means. I don't want you to participate in an activity if you don't know what it means. That's what I'm anti. And we'll discuss some of the problems with that. Migrating away from the center and creating styles in the periphery that may be classified as ghetto, by doing that, people may be saying, I'm an individual. Part of what you see when you see these waterfall hairdos, these multi-layered colors, is people attempting to carve out their individuality and say, I am beautiful, I'm different, I am exceptional. It is not just about necessarily being dominated. It's about recapturing and transforming that perception and showing that I'm special even though everything in the world tells me I'm not special. So we use our hair as a way to produce this kind of special perception of ourselves. Hair is a symbolic interaction and resistance. The importance for hair for African American women and women of African descent extends beyond its appearance because its manipulation is an artistic set of rituals that are being practiced in Africa and throughout the diaspora. My work spanned from Ghana to Nigeria to Trinidad to Puerto Rico, and all of these places, to Fiji, to American Samoa. All of these places, women of color are doing the exact same things. The rituals are the same. In Colombia, they're doing the same thing. In Brazil, they were like, please, fala Portuguese, you bring me the relaxer when you come. I'm like, no, I'm not bringing a box full of relaxer in my bag. But I did bring the relaxer because that's what people want all over the world. They want to participate in these rituals. So these culturally universal rituals represent a body of beliefs and values that are socially transmitted and patterned to guide the group's behavior. Therefore, I argue that hair and hairstyles among African-descended women are evidence of the unconscious grammar of diasporan culture, African retentions, inventions, and transformations. Understanding the symbolic grammar of hair will assist me in analyzing the concept of a shared culture among women in the African diaspora. One of the key questions in anthropology and the key questions in social sciences is, what is culture and what is evidence of a culture? This is distinct evidence of African American culture. Our hair is evidence of our culture. How we deal with it, the belief system we have, the hair stories we tell, all link us together in a culture. My goal in this research was to explore the ways in which women in the diaspora inscribe a multitude of symbolic meanings into their bodies by manipulating their hairs and hairstyles. I believe this active construction of identity constitutes the cultural domain of hair. Once this domain is identified, it can be assessed as an example of African retention, invention, or transformation. Most black women are initiated into this realm of social interaction during the ritual of hair combing as children. During combing rituals, diasporan children's identities are formed. A young girl's self-concept is created as she internalizes distinct messages about the meaning of race, gender, beauty, and hair for a woman of African descent. This is an emotional endeavor that links beauty and identity with pain and sacrifice. On Cindy's video, when that woman is getting that perm, everybody in here winched because you knew the pain and sacrifice that was required to let that stuff burn and not ask them to wash it out right then, right? That's a part of the ritual that we're participating in throughout the diaspora, and now in Africa also. Because inevitably, identity production reveals to black women how her body has been positioned negatively in the dominant ideology, social interaction teaches African-descended women in America they are not full participants in the beauty myth. Drawing upon Foucault's discussion of the relationship between power and knowledge, I assert that although black women are subject to surveillance during social interaction, and in an effort to make their bodies docile and compliant within the racial hierarchy, some of them use hair and hairstyle as a form of reflexive, counter-hegemonic discourse that permits a renegotiation of self. So while some women may be engaged in what appears to be a reproduction of hegemonic aesthetics, I argue that they are actually participating in the transformation of the black female image within and in despite of dominant ideology. So the black woman with good or bad hair, nappy or straight hair, socially acceptable or socially radical hair, is ultimately engaged in reformulating her own image. And this is how the contemporary hairstyles of American women, African-American women, or African-descended women are renegotiated. People assume that your hair means something about you and what it says about you and who you are.
Oh my goodness.
But what it says about you is that today I put on a dress that was red, or yesterday I put on a dress that was blue. Because for us, it's all about transformation. And who we are, though, is mediated by what our hair looks like. People assume who I am. This is my legal outfit I had on a second ago. I get a ticket. If I get picked up by the police, I'm sure I've been courting that outfit. Not in this one. Because my understanding of what hair symbolically means in our culture, the judge might be a black woman. Who's going to convict me faster? Which person would you convict faster? Who would you assume I was based on my hairstyle? It's unfortunate, but hair is identity for us.
It's a hot mess.
And in our culture, we've got to say, hey, this is from the Bronner's Brothers hair show. And these women are expressing their identity to the utmost. And what you see here is everything from the bingo hair to the natural twist.
Art.
It's art. It's production. It's drama. It's not just hair. And because it's all of these things, that's why it's so important. That's why it makes such a difference to us, because it covers all of these different things. And in the end, I'm not my hair. If I'm not my hair, then who am I? That's the question I have to ask. Let's look at the video.